Mission to Moscow. President Obama heads to a crucial summit, but who is really calling the shots in Russia? And NBC News gets an inside look at the battle to control loose nukes. Murder mystery, new clues in the death of a Super Bowl star. What's next for Sarah Palin? From Wasilla to Washington. That's the political question tonight. And Grand Slam. One for the record books at Wimbledon.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening. President Obama is on his way to Russia tonight, where shadows of the Cold War will loom over his summit meeting in Moscow tomorrow. Like East-West summits of old, the control and reduction of nuclear weapons arsenals will be on the table. And then there's a question of just who's really in charge in Russia, President Medvedev or Prime Minister and former President Vladimir Putin. It's a question that could complicate Mr. Obama's mission to repair a tattered U.S.-Russian relationship. NBC Chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd sets the scene for us from Moscow tonight.
Well, Lester, President Obama arrives here in Moscow tomorrow morning to begin his fourth major trip overseas. But unlike his previous European stops, there aren't going to be throngs of people in the streets to greet the president. In fact, there are no posters, banners, or flags denoting this visit by the American president. And the local media has barely made mention of the president's pending arrival.
Since taking office, the Obama administration has sent not-so-subtle signals that it wants to reset America's relationship with its one-time Cold War enemy, Russia. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton with her Russian counterpart in March.
I wanted to present you with a little gift. We want to reset our relationship. We worked hard to get the right Russian word. Do you think we got it?
You get it wrong.
I got it wrong.
America's once good relationship with Russia has recently been lost in translation with the American public as well. Half the country, 49%, view Russia as an adversary. Just 29% see the country as an American ally. 7 years ago, it was quite different, with 52% of Americans viewing Russia as an ally. Any reset with Russia is complicated by the fact that it's unclear who President Obama's true counterpart is. On paper, Mr. Obama's equal is Russian President Medvedev. The two met face-to-face briefly in London in April. But it's generally accepted that former President and current Prime Minister Vladimir Putin is the real power. Mr. Obama is hoping his newly warm relationship with Medvedev changes Putin's attitude, which has been more adversarial.
I think that it's important that even as we move forward with President Medvedev, that Putin understands that the old Cold War approaches to U.S.-Russian relations is outdated.
The business of this trip is something right out of the Cold War. Meet a December 2009 deadline to come up with a new arms reduction treaty, known as START, or as some in the U.S. delegation are wanting to symbolically call it, New START. After Moscow, the president heads to Italy for the G8, a meeting of the world's largest industrial countries. When in Rome, Mr. Obama will also have an audience with the Pope. The last stop is Ghana, a West African country that U.S. presidents have showcased recently as a model of democracy, and for its symbolic importance to African Americans, recalling the history of the slave trade there. But the success of this trip depends on whether the diplomatic reset the U.S. seeks here takes place, as Mr. Obama signaled on Russian television.
We are both nuclear superpowers. With that come special responsibilities that are very different from the positions of many other countries around the world.
Lester, tonight in Moscow, U.S. representatives hinted that the two presidents would announce some progress on these START weapons talks. However, there is one sticking point. The Russians want missile defense as part of the negotiation. The U.S. believes it's a separate issue, and in fact, it's about protecting allies, including Russia, from a nuclear threat from Iran or North Korea. Lester.
Chuck Todd awaiting the president's arrival in Moscow tonight. For Russia and the U.S., the issue of nuclear weapons is no longer just about reducing the number of warheads. It's also about keeping them out of the hands of terrorists and rogue states. With that part of the story, here's NBC's Jim Maceda.
Containers of weapons-grade uranium leaving Romania under cover of darkness, and in secret flown on a Russian plane back to Russia for storage, all paid for by the U.S. government. It's just one example of U.S.-Russian cooperation in nuclear safety, even when relations are strained. The joint program dates back to the fall of the Soviet Union and of NBC News, Moscow.
Back here at home, police in Nashville, Tennessee are offering new details about the death of former NFL quarterback Steve McNair. While questions remain about how he died, fans and fellow teammates remembered a player admired on and off the field. NBC's Ron Mott is in Nashville with the latest. Ron?
Hey there, Lester. Good evening. This is the stadium where Steve McNair dazzled those home fans all those years. Tonight, this city is in shock and disbelief that one of its favorite stars of all time was found shot to death early yesterday. For 13 seasons, he was called Air McNair, a former NFL star quarterback whose team famously came up inches short in the 2000 Super Bowl. But this weekend in Tennessee, 36-year-old Steve McNair is being called a fallen titan, victim of a suspected murder-suicide inside a down, as he did in life, Lester.
All right, Ron, thank you. Alaska Governor Sarah Palin is keeping a low profile this weekend after leaving both her constituents and fellow Republicans to figure out exactly why she is stepping down. Trying to fill in some of those blanks tonight is our own Andrea Mitchell, who joins us from Wasilla, Alaska. Hi, Andrea.
Hey, Lester. Even here in Wasilla, where you can hear the planes on the lake, Lake Lucille, right by the Palin house, even here, where people know Sarah Palin best, they are wondering why she is quitting and what it means for her political future. A holiday weekend in Wasilla. People were enjoying the good weather. And outside the Trout House Cafe, still trying to figure out the latest surprise from their governor.
Disappointment. I think Sarah's done a great job for the state of Alaska, and I'd like to see her finish it out.
To me, it's a blessing. I'm hoping that whoever comes in will be a little more sympathetic.
Sarah Palin showed up briefly Saturday to watch the July 4th parade in Juneau, but ignored invitations to lead it. And after Friday's rambling and somewhat confusing resignation announcement,
it would be apathetic to just kind of hunker down and go with the flow. We're fishermen. We know that only dead fish go with the flow.
She went on Facebook to explain, writing, and though it's honorable for countless others to leave their positions for a higher calling and without finishing a term, of course we know by now for some reason a different standard applies for the decisions I make. Her lawyer flatly denies any federal investigation or other legal problem.
She did not step down for any kind of scandal or wrongdoing, which has been alleged.
Palin allies say she wants to become a national leader for social conservatives, leaving Alaska to her lieutenant governor.
She has a wider opportunity to advance our core values. I think she's going to take that opportunity.
But by quitting before finishing her first term, Palin has damaged any future run for the presidency, say most Republican strategists, including Karl Rove on Fox News Sunday.
It is not clear what her strategy here is by exiting the governorship 2.5 years through the term and putting herself on a national stage that she may not yet be prepared to operate in.
Other Republican governors considering a White House run have decided not to seek re-election, but not quit mid-term.
It's not the typical path. It is a bit unusual. But I think you have to take her comments at face value. Her view is that she's done.
Freed of her day job here in Alaska, Palin is now likely to make millions with her book deal, on the lecture circuit, possibly even a talk show, especially if she keeps speculation going, keeps people guessing on whether she will run someday for president. But now major Republican fundraisers, including some of her own, say that is nearly impossible. Lester?
Andrea, putting her political future aside for a moment, what practical problems does her sudden resignation create?
Well, it certainly creates problems for her because she has not proved herself, especially by quitting midstream. This could divide the party. She's still very popular with the Republican base, but the major leaders in the party, and you saw that with what Karl Rove had to say, really think that she has signed her own warrant and that she's not going to be able to be a major player in the party.
Andrea Mitchell in Wasilla, Alaska. Thank you very much. There was a death at Disney World overnight when 2 monorail trains crashed on the final run of the day. The collision at the park in Orlando killed the driver of one of the trains and sent the other to the hospital. The few passengers on board were not hurt. Disney shut down the monorail system to investigate the crash. When NBC Nightly News continues this Sunday, hot ticket. Fans vie for access to the Michael Jackson Memorial. And later, history on center court. A day for the record books at Wimbledon. Tonight, more than 1 million Michael Jackson fans are learning if they will have a ticket to attend Tuesday's public memorial. Confirmations are being sent to the almost 9,000 people who will receive 2 tickets each for the event at the Staples Center in Los Angeles. That's where NBC's Michael Oku is tonight with the latest on the preparations. Mike?
Lester, the details of that public memorial are still very sketchy, but we understand that performers have been rehearsing behind closed doors here at the Staples Center, while some have remembered the life of Michael Jackson at Sunday Mass.
He's a mighty God.
At the city's oldest African-American church, they were swaying in their pews,
Come on, hallelujah.
celebrating the life of a fallen star.
It was because of Michael America got comfortable enough to later accept an Oprah, accept a Tiger Woods, accept a Barack Obama.
But Reverend Al Sharpton also criticized the media on this day for focusing on Michael Jackson's lifestyle.
And we don't disrespect any artists. We don't want you disrespecting the Jacksons.
Strong words ahead of Tuesday's public memorial. A memorial with the makings of a farewell tour.
This is one of the hottest tickets ever.
1.6 million people put in dibs for the 18,000 tickets up for grabs online. The hopeful gathered by the Staples Center today just to get close.
If you don't try, you don't get any hope at all. So, we're hoping for some success.
There's a lot that we still don't know about what's going to happen at the memorial. This is a major challenge to put together thousands of celebrities and thousands of regular people.
Madonna won't be there, but this weekend, the singer paid tribute as she opened a London concert.
Let's give it up to one of the greatest artists the world has ever known, Michael Jackson. Long live the king.
Back home, preparations are underway to accommodate massive media presence and to contain an army of up to 700,000 onlookers.
I think it's very unusual in the scale of the event.
As for the investigation, authorities are now reportedly focusing on 5 doctors who may have illegally prescribed drugs to Jackson.
Physicians have a responsibility, and under the federal law, the prescriptions they write need to be for a valid medical purpose.
And late word tonight from LAX that some people are flying into Los Angeles in the hopes of having won one of those tickets. Some from overseas having spent up to $3,000 on a flight, even though the odds of having won a ticket are only 1 in 183, Lester.
All right, Michael Oku in Los Angeles. Thanks. When we come back, an addiction crisis as parents try to keep teens safe from a silent killer. NBC News in depth tonight, the growing problem of prescription drug abuse among teens. Authorities say prescription drugs can be too easy to get and a hard habit to break. NBC's Mark Potter reports on one state that's struggling to protect young people from addiction and accidental death.
At a cemetery in Moorhead, Kentucky, Karen Shea mourns the loss of her 19-year-old daughter, Sarah. Sarah Shea struggled with prescription drug abuse. Mark Potter, NBC News, Moorhead, Kentucky.
When Nightly News returns this Sunday, a new king of tennis. Finally, a marathon finish at Wimbledon today as Roger Federer and Andy Roddick battled for 5 close sets. In the end, after the longest 5th set in any Grand Slam, Federer claimed the trophy and a piece of tennis history. Here's NBC's John Yang.
It was one for the record books. The most games played in a Wimbledon men's championship match, 77.
I hope Andy didn't hurt himself there.
The most 5th set games of any major epic battle in front of their families, tennis legends, and Hollywood stars. Federer's win puts him back in the top spot in the world rankings. He replaces Rafael Nadal, the man who interrupted his reign as king of center court last year. Now comes the question, is Federer the greatest player of all time?
Roger's a stud. I mean, the guy is an incredible athlete, 15 majors and counting. It's incredible.
Rod Laver's another contender for the title, the only man to win all 4 major tournaments in a single season.
Yeah, if you're the best in your era, I mean, that's certainly the first thing, and he's certainly that.
And once again, the king of center court. John Yang, NBC News, Wimbledon, England.
That's NBC Nightly News for this Sunday. Brian Williams will be here tomorrow. I'm Lester Holt reporting from New York for all of us at NBC News. Good night.